And she knew I could not give a shit. And so it got to year 12, and I would go into class and she'd be like, here's a pillow, fuck off to the back of the room. Can you just not disturb me? Like, I'm going to teach the other 29 kids. If you want to contribute, I'm happy to do so, but just don't be a pest.
Yo, play that back.
I have. I went to a really good school, a very academically driven school.
Yeah.
And a lot of the ideology of that school is you come out and you best believe you're going to be a CEO, you're going to be a lawyer, you're going to be a doctor. That's the structure. I mean, you have cases, Hugh Jackman went there as well. So there are still structures of, hey, actually it can happen, but like, and they were incredibly supportive of what I was doing. And they were kind of like, just show up to class. Like, can you just don't fight your teachers. Like, can you just show up? Like, we get that you don't want to be here.
Yeah.
But like, your parents have put you into this school for a reason. So just don't be a dick. It was actually sat down with the headmaster and he was like, can you just stop fucking around? Like, I couldn't give a shit. I had my year 12 maths teacher was one of my favorite people on the planet, because she just she was my math teacher like all through school. And she knew I could not give a shit. And so it got to year 12, and I would go into class and she'd be like, here's a pillow, fuck off to the back of the room. Can you just not disturb me? Like, I'm going to teach the other 29 kids. If you want to contribute, I'm happy to do so, but just don't be a pest. Like, just do your shit in the back of the class. Well, and it's people like that who I've spoken to her recently, and she'd like something on my Facebook page or something. So, and she was like, "Oh, good to see you're still doing it." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm doing some cool stuff. Like, it's great. I'm really happy."
But that's the thing. Like, people don't expect,
Yeah, and
most people quit.
People are like, oh, they'll give it up. She was one of the people that was like, I believe you can do it, and I really hope you do. And she was kind of like, she was like, I'm glad to see that you are still doing it, because if I had seen on your page that you are now working in marketing somewhere, I would have been furious.
Oh, your accountant.
Well, yeah, furious. She's like, I would have been super mad that you're not pursuing what you wanted to do, because you were so adamant that that's what you wanted to do, and just because it's been a rough few years, like, if you wanted to work in marketing, I would have pulled your finger out of your ass and like told you that you needed to do this, like, which was my job. But because I like cared, and because there was so many people in my life growing up who were like, you probably should pull your finger out and do something. But also, I get that this is what you want to do. Even if they were like, he's going to be so fucked, they're like, he needs to make that. He needs to see that for himself.
100%.
And my mum and all my family have been so incredibly supportive of me. And I remember her going up to school one day, being called in once a week maybe, and going in and seeing the head of it might have been the head of academics or something, or someone who was really high up in the school, and us being in a classroom. And I was a prefect as well for co-curricular.
Oh,
So
okay, that makes sense,
a prefect that
turning up.
that doesn't mean anything. And I remember us sitting in a room, and it was like people were like fighting for I slept through the prefect ceremony. Like, they called my name out.
Were you ever awake at school?
No, never. I'm seeing a common theme. Of,
Yeah.
that's why I'm always up now, because I had 12 years of just sleeping.
Dude, well, I love it. As I was talking to him while you went out quickly, I'm like, so how's your day, man? Man, so busy. I woke up at 8, and I was like, oh, that's early? I'm like,
I've had no sleep.
I'm like, well, that's the thing. I'm like, because as I was saying to you, I'm like, he every time I'm like, all right, we're doing a podcast, bro. Can we get our first guest in at 9:30? He's like, bro.
PM? Maybe.
I'm like, dude, I've been up since 5:30, man.
Yeah, you're mad.
That's why I'm also probably not a successful musician. I don't sleep in.
I mean, if I was up at 5:30 in the morning, I'd probably get a hell of a lot done as well. In hindsight, I feel like I'm probably the one in the wrong here. But yeah, I remember us having a meeting and having slept through the prefect. I remember my drummer, Mark, calling me And it was like 9:30, and I was like, what? Like, what do you want? He's like, where are you? I'm like, I'm in bed. He's like, school starts at 8:20, bro. And I'm like, it's fine. I had maths first period. Like, I would be sleeping anyway.
I'm just cutting out the commute.
I'm cutting out the middleman. I'm just here anyway. I'm just doing homework. And he was like, yeah, we're doing the prefect. Like, there's an assembly happening now. I'm like, oh, cool. Like, who got shit? He's like, well, you did. I was like, oh, all right, Mark. Yeah. Sure, I did, bro. No worries. You do you, mate. And he's like, no, they called you out and you weren't there. Everyone else was there and got their black ties and was super excited about it, but you weren't there, and it wasn't unexpected. And I was like, oh, okay. And I just remember us sitting down, my mum and this head of academics guy, and sitting down and him being like, the fuck? In short. And he was like, look.
Paraphrasing.
Sure, he didn't say those exact words. But he sat down and he was, everyone was always super supportive, and I have nothing bad to say about the school, and I wouldn't be the man or probably even the musician I am if it wasn't for how much they nurtured me. And I remember just sitting in that room and him being like, obviously, because his job was to make sure everyone got the best marks and make sure everyone was working hard.
Yeah.
And he's like, David's been sleeping through classes or not showing up or fighting with teachers.
Because he wasn't allowed to sleep.
Because he wasn't allowed to sleep. And he was super grumpy about it because that's his nap time. You don't wake David up from a nap. And I just remember him sitting there and being like, if he doesn't pull his finger out, like, we're going to take his prefectship off him. And I was like,
here you go.
You're welcome. I'll cut out the middleman again. You have it. I wasn't even there. As far as I'm aware, I had nothing. And because that was a huge threat. And because it's a great thing to put on a resume that you were a prefect at this school and da-da-da-da.
That's what I look for in a musician.
I'm like, next time I go into a record label, here are my songs, but fuck that.
Prefect.
I was prefect in 2015, so I'll take a $2 million advance, maybe. Co-curricular, 1.5, that's fair. And I remember thinking, who the fuck, like, this is such bullshit. Like, who cares? And then I thought, like, all those kids that, like, actually work their ass off and apply themselves and, like, wanted to be a prefect, like, I guess I should I didn't end up doing it. There was 2 seconds there. I was like, maybe I should, like, whatever. And Mom was like, is he being disrespectful? And he was like, I mean, he's not being like, he's sleeping through classes. And she's like, well, is he bullying anyone? And he was like, not. Like, he seems reasonably well liked to an extent, as much as he can be likable when he's asleep half the time. And she's like, is he offending anyone? Is he bullying anyone? Is he being a dick? And he was like, well, I guess.
Well, it's the expectation again, the status quo.
Well, yes.
You know,
he was like,
he's not doing what we expect him to do at school.
Exactly. He was like, well, he's not doing, like, he's not studying, and he's not. And she's like, is he being a good person? And he was kind of like, fuck.
What
the
is
parents
that?
in here before were like complaining because my son got a B+ and like we were having a full fight and they were whipping him in the chair. Like, what do you mean? Is he? And she was like, is he being a good person? And he was like, I don't really know. I guess I haven't had many complaints from teachers and stuff. I guess. And she was like, you can take the prefectship. If somebody else deserves it more than him, then go for gold. And he's like, well, I guess he did deserve it for the co-curricular stuff. And she was like, well, there you go.
Yeah, well, that's the thing though.
But
like,
that was, she was like, if he doesn't want to study and he doesn't want to do anything. My younger brother, who finished 3 years later, got 99.35. So she knew that one was coming up. She was like, trial and error.
She was playing. It was a risk factor, really.
Trial and error. All his teachers didn't. Yeah, exactly. None of his teachers knew we were related until graduation, and they were like, "How the fuck?"
You were awake at every single class.
What? And early, and like studying.